luscious, passionate melody that sweeps you away. The virtuoso parts interlaced with the orchestra, and the challenges of accompanying a soloist. All of this and more coming right up on Conducting Pills. Hi, I'm Gianmaria, I'm a conductor and a composer, and welcome to this episode of Conducting Pills, a series where we take a repertoire piece or a part of it and we analyze it from a conductor's point of view. In this episode, we'll dive into the first movement of Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto, its structure, its phrasing, and of course, we'll have some technical tips. As usual, you can jump through different sections of the video by clicking on the links present in the description below. Now, let's start! One of the most iconic pieces of classical music, Rachmaninoff's second piano concerto was intended for a London concert in 1899. However, in that same year, Rachmaninoff had suffered a mental breakdown and was in the middle of a creative block after the disastrous premiere of his first symphony. His confidence as a composer was severely impacted, and he became a patient of Russian physician Nikolai Dahl. And to him, the second piano concerto was dedicated. The first movement of the concerto was completed in 1901, while the other two had been written in 1900. And the structure is a sonata form, beginning with an introduction of the piano. The first 8 bars are essentially rooted around the subdominant, the F, with a chromatic alteration on each chord, until the last of these 8 bars, when we finally get the dominant leading to C minor. The piano accompanies with arpeggios the warm and dramatic theme, played in unison by violins, violas, and clarinet. Notice the orchestration. The violins are playing in the lower register, while the violas and the clarinet add the warmth and dark quality to the entire phrase. It goes without saying, but leave the pianist alone in the introduction. And once you start conducting, your arms should be around your waist level. This is why body position is really important. It adds the proper weight to the musical phrase. The second part of this main theme is signaled by the cellos, with a beautiful phrase continuing the same tone. The cellos are then joined by the other strings, while the piano continues its accompaniment in arpeggios. This phrase is slightly less defined than the opening one. It is in fact one big phrase from the entrance of the cellos to rehearsal number 3, rising to a climax on bar 42. As a conductor, you're in charge basically from rehearsal number 1 to rehearsal number 3. At 3, you leave the stage to the pianist, who plays an extension of the cello melody. And keep an eye on the pizzicatos of the cellos and basses. The piano takes the lead again in the following transition, fluttering in the upper part of the keyboard while the orchestra keeps a pedal on C. A cadence in C minor opens the doors to a rising figure in the woodwinds, brass, and the upper strings. Notice the C flat on bar 77. It's part of an altered 9 chord built on the second degree of E flat major. It's a typical Rachmaninoff sonority. This leads to the E flat major at the tempo primo and to the second theme. The second theme is introduced by the clarinets, with these pulsating thirds over the viola. Naturally, the piano takes over with this gorgeous melody. And this second theme can be split into 3 blocks: measure 83-103, measure 104-113, and measure 114-125. On measure 103, we can see the cellos entering with the rising motive of the second theme. In all 3 blocks, it's very interesting to notice the phrase structure is always irregular, and this adds restlessness and drama to the music, pushing the curiosity of the audience, waiting for a point of release. The oboes and clarinets enter on bar 125, echoed by the piano at 126, forming a duet for the following 8 bars. Be particularly careful in balancing out this section. Closing in on the exposition, we hear the motive played by the violas in the transition between the first and the second theme, this time played by the horn. development is introduced by a brass chorale on bar 151. This section also can be divided, and it can be split into 5 different blocks. Measure 151 to 177, bar 178 to 193, bar 194 to 208, bar 209 to 216, and finally bar 217 to 244. Now in the first block, notice the first theme played by the oboes, clarinets and violas. And a new rhythm appearing in the lower strings. This rhythm will come back in the recapitulation and in the last movement as well. In the second block, the piano enters with the second theme, while the horn carries out an inverted first theme. Third block is built with 4 bars phrases using a motive from the second theme. The fourth block begins with the poco a poco accelerando, which means moving faster little by little. The clarinets and violas play the second theme while the piano keeps its arpeggios on top of them. And finally, the fifth block. It begins with an accelerando, preparing for the recapitulation. There's a tremendous climax, reaching its highest point at the a tempo. The piano sweeps up the fortissimo chord, leading to the 4 bars block on the dominant that prepares the recapitulation. Now notice the tempo marking, maestoso alla marcia, which means majestic in a marching tempo. And while the strings play the first theme, the piano hammers away in powerful chords. The recapitulation proceeds normally until Rachmaninoff tricks us. On bar 296, there is a dominant 7th chord. Now, while in the exposition this led to the transition, here it resolves to an A-flat chord. The transition is cut altogether, and we're taken directly to the second theme, played with a rhythmic variation by the solo horn. Like in the exposition, the phrase structure is irregular here as well. The progression at the meno mosso marks the beginning of the coda. The first part of the coda sees the piano flurrying over dotted rhythms of the orchestra. And the second part begins at the poco a poco accelerando on bar 361, taking the movement to a quick conclusion. Accompanying a soloist is an art in itself, especially in this type of repertoire where the solo and the orchestra parts often overlap and interchange. You need to know when it's time for the conductor to lead and when it's time for the pianist to take the reins. And the trickiest and perhaps most important thing is to learn how to breathe with the soloist so that you can anticipate the orchestra and create a cohesive performance. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button right below the video and ring the bell so you will get notified every time a new video comes out. You can also show your support on Patreon. Just follow the link in the description. Now let me know in the comments what you think about this piece and if you have any suggestion for future videos. And I will see you in the next episode of Conducting Pills, where we will talk about Schumann's Spring Symphony. Till then, bye bye.